Okay, I've got my nice shirt on, so maybe you'll take me a little bit more seriously than usual, because this is a serious camera to discuss. And yes, I do have two of them. In my over-eagerness to pre-order, I ended up buying from two separate retailers, and they both shipped at about the same time. Definitely mailing one of these back, because this camera body, the Zeiss ZX1, is a fixed lens, a 35mm f2.0. So there's just lost the light. Yes, this camera is a fixed 35mm f2.0 prime lens that is not interchangeable with any other lenses. So there is literally no reason to own two that I could possibly imagine, unless maybe you wanted to do video with one and stills with another. So this is going back. And in case anybody's wondering, I do spend all of my own hard-earned money on everything that I review. If I don't, then I freely admit it and give that product away to winners of the 3-step click contest that I occasionally run on my Patreon. And I'll say, I don't really know who to trust anymore when it comes to camera reviews. There are so many manufacturers now that leak early release camera bodies to people of influence that have big followings, and no matter how you cut it, if you were given a piece of equipment for free from a camera manufacturer, it's highly unlikely that they are going to come anywhere close to highlighting weaknesses in said product. And so it appears that Zeiss has not done that. To my eye, I don't follow a lot of photographers that closely, but to my eye, it appears that they did not leak any of these cameras really early at all to any meaningful reviewers. I could be wrong about that, but it seems to be the case, and I respect Zeiss all the more for that. I'm going to do a quick unboxing, even though the camera is already out of the box. It is a $6,000 camera, so I would expect the boxing to be pretty awesome. Here it is. Yep. Now, I don't know if any of you out there have used any Leica cameras, but this definitely reminds me sort of the degree in terms of quality that Leica hits. The box, there's a lot of magnetic latches, there's Velcro latches, everything is perfectly foam cut to fit. It's just a pleasing experience. It feels like it's absolutely been shipped securely, no doubt about that. And there's not much to it. You get this little form, this card, that really boils this entire camera down to 5 steps, which is interesting. Insert and charge battery. Use the power switch for different functions. There's really just still and movie mode. See your images, access tools, edit and share. Now the big gotcha, the amazing thing about this camera is that the access tools, edit and share, literally means Lightroom Mobile. Lightroom Mobile is built into the Zeiss ZX1. The entire experience with the Zeiss interface is all just an Android operating system that was customized for the specific use case of shooting. It's pretty amazing. We'll get into that in a second. Everything about this camera is USB-C. They include a USB-C cable and this adorable little pouch. Look at that. That actually houses a USB-C to USB Type-A adapter, which makes sense. They're trying to, make it easy, remove the friction for anybody that doesn't own a USB-C compatible computer yet. That's fine. The only thing that was a bit surprising to me was that the strap for the camera is not made by Zeiss. It's made by a company called Peak Design, whose straps I do not like. I've actually used an iteration of this exact strap with my other camera bodies and ended up really not using it at all. I didn't like it. They did commission a specific ZX1 branded strap, which is kind of cool. And hey, if you're a Peak Design fan as far as straps go, you are just set and ready to go. So that's really it. As far as everything else in the box, you get a nice little low profile rubber hood, which is actually my preferred hood. And you also get a metal hood. Here it is. You get this really nice metal hood that obviously increases the footprint and size of the camera overall. Really, really nice quality, very smooth, lightweight metal. A little bit of a felt interior there. So I've had this camera for about 2 weeks, and normally I have a 10,000 image rule before I review any piece of equipment that I'm going to use in my professional life. I want to hit a 10,000 image minimum before issuing my opinion, because you need a huge array and variety of conditions that you're shooting in before you really intimately know like a product, whether it be a camera body or a lens. And this year has been insane, this fall in particular. I've reviewed the Hasselblad 907X50C, the Canon R5, the Canon R6, a ton of lenses in between all those, and released SignalFlow, which is my new editing pack through DVLOP, which you should check out. Anyway, I've been very busy this fall, and I was worried that I wouldn't be able to hit the 10,000 image requirement with this Zeiss camera. And to be honest, I haven't hit that limit because this isn't going to sit in my sort of main workhorse for wedding work, nowhere close. And I'll get more into that in just a minute, but just to talk about the camera body, you know, I was surprised when I took this out of the box to just hold it in my hands and realize I'd never held a Zeiss camera in my hands before. The reason for that is that Zeiss has never made a camera body before. I've been a huge fan of their lenses, though never really owning one that I used day in and day out for my image making. I had reviewed and tested a ton of Zeiss lenses. They're incredible lens makers. And I am literally floored. I am just completely shocked that this is their first attempt at a serious full-frame digital camera. It's just stunningly beautiful. In your hand, it just molds and fits exactly the way that I wish other cameras would. It's very minimalist in its design. It's extremely high quality. It's weighty, but not heavy. It really hits that perfect balance on so many fronts. It literally only has 3 knobs: aperture, ISO, and shutter. That's all you need as a wedding photographer. And then each one can be nudged into an auto mode. That's how every camera should be. It's got a hot shoe. I haven't done any flash work with it yet. It's got an EVF and a big display, and then it's got a little button here. And if I have any complaints about the operation and the hardware, it's this tiny little button. You can customize it. Here it is. You can customize that to do a few different things. I have it set to lock autofocus and lock exposure, so I can like focus recompose, but it's a little bit of a reach. It's just a little too far away. I kind of wish they'd positioned it over here. And here's one interesting aspect with the camera design in general. The screen actually pivots and turns with the grip of the body, which is pretty freaking awesome. Here, I feel bad. I never use this camera for stuff. It's pretty cool. The screen literally like floats over that curve. So it's got a bendable screen, which is kind of unique. And we'll get more into the operational aspects of that in a second. The entire back display is completely touchscreen, and it's humongous. It is probably the largest screen I've ever used on a camera before. And it literally boots in, I think I mentioned earlier, it literally boots into a version of Android that is custom designed for this shooting experience. It's got USB-C connection all around, which I'm actually going to plug in right now to capture the HDMI out from this camera body into my little monitor recorder. Here is a bit of a disappointment. I was hoping that, it's such an expensive camera. I'm not always going to be out shooting with it. This is squarely in the personal pleasure zone, for lack of a better phrase, for photo making. This is not going to be used very often professionally for me. I wish I could use this output for a webcam, but there seems to be no way to put it in a mode that doesn't have a bunch of stuff on the screen, all the tools and everything captured alongside it, which is a bit of a bummer. But for showing you what the actual experience of shooting is like, it's excellent. And okay, just to get a few things out of the way. One, it is a version of Android, and though this seems to be pretty streamlined, it's still a little bit weird in its responsiveness when you switch over to other pages in here. You always enter this main shooting window, even if you're somewhere else, like in image review or editing, literally in Lightroom. As soon as you have pressed the shutter, you jump right back into active shooting mode, which I love. It prioritizes shooting and access to just being able to take a photo as quickly as possible. These little menus, when you're in the shooting mode, these menus on the side here, let's just see these little buttons. This is all touch swipeable. Even when you've got the EVF up in your eye, you get this cool little, it's probably not recording it because it doesn't have it on display, but you get this little thumb circular trackpad. So you can still engage with all of your different settings while shooting with the EVF, which is really, really nice and honestly unexpected. And again, shocked. I am just sitting in awe that Zeiss was able to program an experience of shooting unlike anything else that's ever existed and actually pull it off really, really well. It's not flawless, still needs some work, but it's excellent. Okay, so you've got this main shooting window, then you swipe anywhere on the left, and it's sort of just like your overall mode switcher. You've got your like main image review, whatever's built into the internal memory. Oh, by the way, this has no SD card slot. It's all 100% internal memory, which is fine. That's great. That's sort of the way things should be. Okay, and let's see. If you swipe back down from this mode, you get your raw kind of camera settings, focus assist lamp, shooting formats, auto ISO options, how you connect to Wi-Fi, all those various details, configurable details are here. So that's sort of the menu number 4. This is menu number 3, which is the shooting mode. Menu number 2 is image review. And my favorite, menu number 3 is a literal Android wallpaper. And it does rotate based on what orientation you have the camera, which is just awesome. And it's almost like they shoved a little cell phone in here because there's actual vibration response with some of the modes, and every time you push a button, you get a little vibration, which is really nice. It just, because it's a touch screen, you don't always have that confidence that you've pressed hard enough. I mean, it's really a sensitive touchscreen, but it's nice to have the actual vibration in your hand. And it's, again, it is like they put a little cell phone, Android cell phone in here. It's that good. And it operates just like Android with a home screen, previous app, and then return button, just like you would have in Android. It's actually got Instagram installed. It's a web page version, a web mobile version of Instagram. And here, I'll show you what it looks like. There it is. So that's my real Instagram. And it's got Lightroom Mobile, of course. One big question I have is you don't get access to everything you would expect in Android. It is a modified version of it. So there's no Google Play Store. I'm sure you could hack it to gain access to those things, but I'm curious how I update Lightroom. I hope I don't have to do it through a firmware update every time, but I honestly haven't investigated it that much yet. But here we are. We have a full-featured version of Lightroom Mobile, which is coming really close in terms of features to be right on par with Lightroom Classic. It's getting close. And there's all sorts of shortcuts you can make to, like, as you're shooting, auto add to Lightroom, or have the option of choosing what you want it to send to Lightroom. Because as soon as it's here, if you have Wi-Fi turned on, it auto syncs to every other Lightroom iteration that you have. So it shoots the raw file straight up to the cloud. It'll sync with your computer, your iPad, your phone, all at the same time, which is great, but you may not want to do that with every single photo that you take. So you can toggle that option on or off, and I really like having it on for almost every photo. It's kind of awesome. And then you can have, again, like in regular Lightroom Mobile, you can have your baseline preset applied, like I do with these. I have signal flow applied to every image on import, and it looks beautiful. It looks exactly the same as if I'm editing on desktop. The big question mark with this camera when it was released was, with Lightroom being so tightly integrated, could you see what you were shooting with your preset applied in real time? And the answer to that is no, you can't. And I think that's okay. It's not the worst thing. Oop, I just took a photo. It's not like this is a bad viewer. I will say the screen temperature in general is not very accurate. It's much more green and yellowish in its tint than anything close to even an iPhone screen, or certainly my calibrated iMac Pro. It is not a screen that you would want to edit from reliably for mission critical, final deliverable work. But it's certainly good enough, and it's nice to just see my baseline preset signal flow applied right out of the gate to everything. And then when I sit down at my desktop, I do have the color accurate screen and everything is hunky-dory. Again, this is the full version of Lightroom that you can download on your mobile phone. They did not cut any corners. I'm not sure what involvement Adobe even had with this other than, well, yeah, I don't think they really had any involvement. Zeiss really took the reins, made something special for themselves, and I'm having trouble finding any fault at all with it, other than this weird reach for a button. The focus tracking, okay, it's not as good as a Canon EOS R or R6 or a Sony camera with its eye tracking. It's not as good. It does do tracking. It does like track, but it's look. It just missed. I was tracking the camera lens there, and I went too fast and it missed. So it's a generation behind, give or take, as far as autofocus goes. But you know, the implementation of it, switching from tracking focus to single point focus, continuous to it's all so elegantly implemented that it almost doesn't even matter. Literally, what you want when you take over the focus ring is for the camera to zoom in and highlight using focus peaking what you want in focus. It does that. And then if you hesitate for like 2 seconds without touching it, it jumps back for focus recompose. It's just stunningly well thought out, especially for a very first generation camera. But what really sticks out to me is the very first thing that anybody I've shown this camera has said. From the moment I turned it on and showed them like the back of the screen and how the menus work, oh, that's the future. Oh yeah, this is the future of cameras. It's almost so obvious that it's shocking that Zeiss is the only one to embrace this approach so far. I truly believe Canon and Nikon, when they launched their mirrorless cameras, should have used that as an opportunity to throw out all of their graphic user interface and just gone with something Android-based so that they could take advantage of a rapidly evolving ecosystem, an app store like what exists in Google Play. Obviously, I doubt Apple would have played along, but yeah, this is it. I love this machine. $6,000. Very expensive. The sensor is really good, and I'm going to include a lot of high ISO, high dynamic range files, raw files for you to play with if you want to check them out. I'll add to that the lens design. Obviously, it's Zeiss, so it's stunning in terms of sharpness. But I was a little apprehensive about the fact that it was an f2.0 lens. Normally, I was like, I wish it could be a 1.8 or even a 1.4, but as sharp as Zeiss is able to make their lenses, even at 2.0, it is absolutely mind-blowing how much of a 3D effect they're able to achieve with this machine. And the photo that really stuck out of my head where I've had this final realization was this one. This picture of my dog, one of the first that I probably took with this. It's so sharp that the bokeh rendering and everything just takes on a painterly kind of vibe to it. You can see it's actually the wallpaper background of the Android mode of this camera. I can't say enough good things about this. At $6,000, it is a total luxury item. If you're desperate for something new to document things in your personal life, yeah, maybe you can justify the cost of this, but I'm going to unplug from the screen. But at $6,000, it is so out of reach for so many people. It is the first Zeiss camera, I think, that Zeiss has ever made, so a bit of a collector's item. And it is stunningly beautiful, and it's operationally excellent. And yeah, I mean, the lens is just incredible as well. So, you know, there's a lot of value that goes into this. But at $6,000, you know, I think this would have been a runaway success at something more like $3,500 or $3,000, but obviously Zeiss just didn't see that in the works. Oh, I should mention one other thing that I'm not overly impressed with is the EVF. It's, depending on your viewing angle, it gets a little streaky and distorted on the edges. I've never noticed that with other mirrorless cameras. When you're looking straight on down the barrel, it's fine. I don't know if I can even show you. But yeah, once it's up against your eye, if it isn't perfectly aligned down the barrel, you just get a streaky blurriness, which I didn't find, it's just distracting. I didn't find it really great. But other than that, this camera is amazing. And I would love to see other manufacturers embrace the Android Lightroom mobile idea. I think it's amazing. So thank you so much for your attention. Let me know if you have any questions at all in the comments, and I'll be back soon. Bye. Okay, so I was editing the entire video I made last night, and I realized I never actually did a demo, an example of the speed and what it looks like to shoot from the camera, let it sync and upload from the camera to Lightroom Mobile, and then have it pop up on a mobile app. So I was just going to do that really quickly right here. I have one weird disclaimer though. I think I have a gigantic single file trying to sync to the cloud continuously. It must be like a Brenizer method or something like that. I need to check. It's from my desktop computer, I'm assuming, but for whatever reason, it's just constantly in a state of upload pending, 1, which is weird. So that may skew the overall time. It'll still work. It'll upload more than just one at a time, but there's one constantly trying to upload file, and I can't really I can't seem to narrow down which one it is on the camera body. So that's just something to be aware of. Okay, so I've got my mobile app opened on iPad here, and I'm gonna take a quick picture of that. Click. Okay, so photo is taken. Now, I have this set up to auto-populate any and every picture I take gets sent to Lightroom Mobile without me having to touch anything. So it is uploading now. Syncing, so it's upload pending 1, now upload 2. Let's see. Might already be uploaded. And so what's occurring here is the camera is uploading a full, not just a smart preview, a full raw file to the cloud from the original source, which is the camera body. And to my understanding, being sent everywhere else is the smart preview, unless you want to do an export or something like that. Or if you're on Lightroom desktop. Then in Lightroom Classic, it does actually sync the full raw file to a folder in Finder. It's always been a little bit uncomfortable, a little bit of a mystery of exactly where the smart previews sit versus the raw files in Adobe's cloud ecosystem. But that is, to my understanding, how it works. The full raw file goes up to the cloud. Every other app kind of downloads the smart preview, but in Lightroom Classic, you get a full raw file in a Finder, in a folder on your, your desktop computer or whatever. So, okay, it is fully uploaded. Just that single photo. And this is, I'm not sure how big the individual file sizes are, probably about 30 megabytes each, something like that. So you really do need to be on like a home Wi-Fi connection or have a really good hotspot. And there it is. Cool. So it just popped up. And any edits, anything, if I have signal flow applied by default, all of those edits carry through and sync backwards and forwards. So I can, let's see how quickly a sync occurs. So I'm going to just boost exposure artificially here and back out. And let's see. I really wish I could test this without that one file trying to sync constantly. All right, so that seems to be synced to the cloud, synced and backed up. And this one, still don't see the change yet. Oh, but one thing that is kind of cool, I have just in my testing run into a circumstance where I edited it on one machine and then made an edit on another before it had been able to sync. And Lightroom does warn you before, if it knows that an edit has occurred and you're working on something actively, it'll warn you that there may be a sync conflict. Do you want to continue? So generally, you'd probably want to say no to that answer unless you know you want to overwrite the edit you made before. So let's see here. And opening the image up. Yeah, so it carried over pretty quickly. I'm going to do one more test just to see. I'm going to take this image of a camera, boost it up again, go back, see how long it takes to sync. I'm not actually sure if it gives you cloud. Oh, it does. It does give you the cloud pending thing for edit syncing. Okay, but yeah, that is done pretty quickly. And I'm not gonna wait for it to do anything in the preview on the back. I'm just gonna open it and see. That's the image. Let's see how it opens. Oh, it opened perfectly fast. So because the original RAW files initially are synced to the cloud, once you're doing edits of just the lightweight sort of smart previews, it seems to be a much, much faster experience for syncing things across back and forth. That was literally a matter of seconds. I'm gonna do it one more time. So I'm boosting exposure artificially. I'm gonna let that sync. Takes about, I don't know, 5 seconds before it even starts to recognize that it should start syncing. But okay, it's syncing now. Edit is synced. It's done. Took about 2 seconds. And I'm going to find that image on the camera. I think it's this one. Wait, should pick something more obvious. It's this one. Opening, and it's got a nice little loading thing. Oh, yeah, perfect. So it does sort of kind of churn a loading ring when you open it, and it's clearly trying to phone home to the cloud to check if there are any edits. So before you'll even be able to start editing, it's going to make sure and import from the cloud whatever the most recent edit is. So that's a pretty great That's a pretty great solution. And overall, in practice, I've just found this to be a really seamless, comfortable, intuitive experience. So I hope you enjoyed that. I just wanted to make this add-on to, demo what is a pretty critical component of working with this camera. I don't think I've actually even connected this to my computer yet to start editing photos. That's how reliably it's been syncing everything. So pretty neat. Thanks, everyone. Bye.